Alright, what's going on, guys? Um, Welcome back to this tutorial. Today, just gonna break it down, some of the things that I've shot recently um, for this channel. So let's check it out, and I'll be right back. So as you guys can see, it's very simple footages. I'm sure you guys can simply shoot this within a day. Just find a nice location and you're set to go. But it's it's heavily relied on a lot of B-rolls. So I think on this very day, we didn't have a lot of time, and especially the weather was very cold. I think it was about -9 degrees. So it was a lot of hard time shooting this, but we pulled it off. But I think the thing I'd like to say here is that a lot of cinematic intros are heavily dependent on B-rolls. At the same time, the B-rolls needs to support the storytelling. So I think what's important here is to really take notes before the shoot of the things that you need to shoot. But the idea here for me was to just use one of the props that I did have, which was just a cigarette. And of course, kids don't smoke. And starting off with a cigarette, and in the end, turns out the cigarette and walks away. So that was just pretty much the simple concept. It can just be anything, you know. You just don't have to pressure yourself with what it is. But of course, it needs to support your story. And my story here was the hunt. So basically, I'm on the hunt for something exotic, something sexy, something at night. No, I'm just kidding. That's the whole theme. So it's a journey of an individual, which that is me, and that's why you see these footages of me walking around and walking towards a certain goal. And there it goes. So it's pretty much in terms of the production process, the shooting, it wasn't that hard. The camera that I used here was the GH4. It did handle the low light pretty well. It wasn't too bad at all. And I think I pushed up the ISO to about 3600 for this very shot. So I don't know if you guys can tell the noise, but of course I removed the noise in post. But you know, the idea here is that if you're limited with budget and lighting or location controls, just push up the ISOs. Why not? And if you have a Sony, you know, A7 series, well, you're in luck. But at the same time, don't be afraid to push up the ISO, because you won't be able to get the shot. So if you're working under budget, I think the mindset is what's important. Let's break down the next shot over to here. It was very simple. Of course, my brother was driving and I was on the passenger seat. Took out my camera. The car was entering the tunnel. I think I was using a 50mm lens over here, and just shoot the footage. Make sure you're stable as possible. Didn't use any gimbal, just handheld. As long as you're shooting slow motion above 60 frames, a lot of things would look smooth in post. So don't worry about that. And in the shot over here was also used, I think, 96 frames in the GH4. So that's why it looks kind of smooth. And I also stabilized it in Premiere Pro. So that's what's up. And here for hunt, it's a title effect that I will walk you guys through in a bit. And let's go to here and here, there. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's break the footages down. First and foremost, I apologize if my timeline lags a little bit. This, of course, what I'm revealing to you is the unrendered footage editing timeline, so it might lag based on my computer specs, but you know, I'm recording the screen at the same time, so just a heads up. All right, first and foremost, the only thing I've added, of course, I've shot this in 16:9, but wanted to go with 2.35 aspect ratio. So that's what I just found online, you know, Google aspect ratio 2.35, 2.4, 1.9, anything you want, and just add that on just so I have a guideline where I can work with. And that's a timeline. Let's see what else we have got here. Okay, the adjustment layer, the only effect I've added here, I think, is lumetri color. So that's what's up. Just a simple coloring effect. It's very easy. Really like this, that the Premiere Pro has this right now. The color grading has become a lot easier. So if we go to the window workspaces color, there it is. Click on the adjustment layer, and I think I've brought down the contrast to -66, and now I've just added I think a built-in one from Adobe, which is the codec. So that's it. Added that in, bring down the intensity to about 70%, and added a faded film and a sharpen and decrease the vibrance, and voila. And one simple tip that I would recommend you guys do is when color grading, make sure you rest your eyes, because a lot of times, and what I mean by that is a lot of times our eyes get used to a certain color or a certain exposure for a long time. You know how, like, when you are in a bright sunlight, or you stare at a very bright light for too long and you close your eyes, there is still a bit of light in the darkness, right? So pretty much the same when you're looking at the computer. You might be adding color corrections and effects, and all of a sudden you feel like you've added too much. So to determine if you went too far or not, I highly recommend you turn on and off the eye control for the adjustment layer, or the effect control, just to see where you're working. So as you can see, it's a subtle effect that adds, you know, the dynamic feel to it. So keep going back and forth. Maybe you guys already know that, maybe not. Let's move on. Here next we have a nested sequence. Let's see what we got here, which is linked to an After Effects project. So let's open that up. All right, guys, here we're in After Effects, found the footage, and let's see what we did here. Okay, so what we did here is, let me show you the first effect that I did here. It's just okay. All right, so the footage that we have below is an actual footage that looks like this. So it's a simple shot of the bridge. And as you can see, let me turn off the adjustment layer for a bit. Okay. So as you can see, it's just a simple footage of the bridge. Nothing is added on here. But for me, it kind of felt that it's too plain. And at the same time, for me to add a title on here, there are a lot of things going on just the way it is. So the simple effect that I've added was a mirror effect, which kind of creates a lot of Inception feel. You know, it just mirrors out the half of the footage depending on the reflection angle. So mine is set to about 90 degrees, but of course you can set it up to however you want, or you can make it appear that the bridge is upside down, which is kind of cool. And perhaps you can put the opening credits right here, but you know, I went on with 90. And it's kind of beautiful how this little sparkle of light that actually travels a little bit and kind of like meets in the center. Kind of did like that, so I stuck with this. But it's gonna differ on your footage as well. So I've also enabled time remapping for this, just to play around with the time. And here I duplicated the footage of the below, deleted the mirror effect on this. Make sure you don't turn the second layer on, and just playing around with the opacity keyframe and just fade that in. And that was pretty much it. Very simple. And set the blending layer for me. I think that was lighter color. And voila. And the adjustment layer on top is a denoiser. I could have also used reduced noise from Nit Video, but denoiser just did a simple, pretty good job, you know, with the default settings and everything. So without it, I'm gonna show you in full effect. As you can see, there is a bit of grain going on over here. Turn that on, it's gonna smooth that out. The only thing you need to worry about using denoiser or any reducing noise plugins is that if you go way too much, it's gonna look very creamy and it's gonna reduce the sharpness. So just make sure you find the right balance that retains the sharpness, at the same time removes the unnecessary noise. Next thing, lumetri color. I think it was pretty much simple, the same effect that I've did. Reduce the vibrance, reduce the contrast, and add the built-in LUT file. And then heat wave. It's one of the things that I've used a lot, overused this on this very project. The reason to that is because it kind of creates a lot of a great, for me, I really love how it works. It kind of creates the heat wave of fire or water. You know, it gives that kind of distortion effect of how, let's say, a fire would create on a certain scene, or how a water would create. So for this, like I said, it was too plain. By adding that, it kind of gives a little bit of distortion on there. And of course, you can play around. I'm gonna just go crazy on here just to give you guys an example. Make that up, go crazy. As you can see, it's gonna create that effect. Feel me? So let's render that out. Voila. So this is not a built-in plugin by After Effects. I think it's a company called Universal or Universe, not really sure. But yeah, I think you can create this within the built-in After Effects. It's gonna take time, but for me, this saved me a lot of time. So let's undo that and move on. The reason why I nested this very footage is because I can add a warp stabilizer, so that I can put the title in and everything's smooth. The adjustment layer is reduced noise by Nit Video and added a lumetri color. As you can see, it was very dark, but I kind of brought it up by reducing the contrast, I think. So voila. And let me come back to this because I don't think I've added the titles. This is just the offline rough cut that I've did, so we'll get back there. Okay, next we have the walking adjustment layer. Walking footage. Again, it's been warped stabilized. So we shot this on a gimbal. It was pretty kind of steady, I think. Not so much, but with the warp stabilizer, it just does wonders for the footage. And as for this, it was shot on 100 frames. Yeah, pretty much self-explanatory. Lumetri color, voila. And what do we have here? Okay, so this was the footage that I've had the most difficult time to work with and spent the most time editing and refining a lot of things here. Because the footage of itself alone, I'm gonna show you guys how this actually looks. This was the plain footage. The color temperature for this camera was 3200, so it's very bluish and everything. And it was also shot, I think, in about above 4000 ISO, and we were really rushed on time, you know, and we kind of had a hard time looking for the very specific location where the bridge was the background and the foreground can actually stand below it. So but by chance we found it, and we went on and set up the camera very close to the water itself. As you can see, that's the water right here. And then we shot the footage, and just me wandering around what the fuck I am and all that stuff, right? But we needed to fit this footage in because it's a very important gap that connects of me walking and stopping, right? And so this was the very important footage, but it wasn't a very usable shot. But it wasn't also footage that I can just sacrifice in putting anything else in, because that kills the story. All right, what's the first thing we did here? We did a horizontal flip because we wanted the talent to go left to right. As you can see, we're going left to right, not right to left. So that's what we did, left to right. Next, we did, come on, a reduced noise effect. All right, let me just quickly show you guys how reduced noise actually works. I might do a separate full tutorial on this if you guys want, but let me just walk you through what this is. It's a paid effect, but it's amazing. It does wonders. I think I did an effect tutorial on this way before, about 5 years ago or 6. All right, we're here on the, let's make that big for you guys. Why not? We're here on the neat video. Now, the only thing you need to worry about is the auto profile and your cursor. First thing you guys need to do is able to tell the software which is the noise profile. So from there on, what I'm going to do is click auto profile. Just click yes. So it's gonna sample out the noise, and you are able to preview the file by clicking on the noise filter settings. By going on there, it's been filtered, and by clicking on preview and on preview, it's gonna show you before and after. Now, I don't think it did a great job, because as you can see on here on the small window, that it did not move at all. So I'm going to find another place that's a lot bigger. So green is the ideal size, and it says clipping in RGB channels. Simply put, it's just saying that the blacks are being crushed. It's clipping. You know, if it's too white or too black, that means clipping. But, you know, I don't care. Let's do it. Auto profile. Voila. And going back to the settings, preview on preview, did a better job. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty much it. You can add sharpness here if you want or not. Okay. I think that looks about good. Click apply. Like I said, if you guys want an in-depth tutorial on this, let me know. I will do a separate one for it. And again, I've added the mirror effect to make this more interesting. And I think I've added a, on top to add that on there. And also another mirror effect to add the reflection on the bottom. It's starting to look okay, it's starting to get there. Color correction here, adjustment layer on top, added a glow by Universal. You can simply add any kind of glow. Another lumetri color for color correction, and yet another one to give the final grade. But we weren't done here. We will come back to this in a bit. Alright guys, here we're back again on the title footage, and let me break it down for you guys on After Effects. Okay, at the very bottom is the footage, and the second one is text. Let's call this titles. Okay, on footage, one thing we've added here is a warp stabilizer. I did warp stabilize this into subtle motion, but I wanted this as no motion at all, because, you know, I didn't want it to end up tracking everything and all that, and save me the hassle. And this was pretty much steady to begin with, so didn't do much scaling at all. And in terms of the title, it's a simple Arial font, I guess. Yes, it's an Arial bold with a bit of spacing and a bit of animation. Let me break it down, the animation. We did some tracking keyframes, so it kind of creates the tracking effect for the text, and also added a blur effect where it goes blurry to fade in, and also adjusted the position so it can make this text stay still, and the only thing that's attracted is the tracking anchored to the center. Okay, so the next thing we've added on the titles is a curves effect. So starting from here, it's kind of brightish, and then on here it's a lot more brighter, so it's gonna give that effect of glowing. We've also added the glow effect from Universal. We move on to the adjustment layer on top. It's a glitch layer, just for transitioning. So it's a glitch effect from Universal, and I think you can also purchase a lot of presets or even free glitch effects online. So just an idea out there. And I think what we have here is also Holland Matrix. Oh, right. This is something that I played around with but ended up not going with. Simply, it's a Holland Matrix from Universal. Kind of gives this, Holland Matrix feel, but, didn't work out. It kind of felt more digital than natural organic feel of the footage, so ended up not going with it. And the first adjustment layer that I've added here is a Noir, and it's just basically a black and white Noir filter, which I've just increased the opacity just about when the glitch transitions, so it transitions from color to black and white. So there's that, and that's that. Moving on, here we have another After Effects project. I think this is it. Okay, pretty much this simple. Added the mirror effect, flip the duplicated video on top, put a mask around it so it's masked out. Moving on here to the next footage is where it gets tricky a little bit. Not so much if you have some experience in editing. It's a simple effect where, let's break it down. It's a simple video footage of me walking, but again, for me it felt really plain to begin with, right? And felt like, how about we add some snow? So that's what we did. We added a black solid trap code particular and created a snow, and at the same time added a motion blur to the snow, just so that it creates the feel of feels more realistic. And as you can see with the camera, you can go in Z spaces, bring it back, bring it forward, and the snow changes. Okay, here we have the headache project, right? Let's see what we got here. What project is this? Let's find it. Here we go. So let's break this footage down. All right, so here we have the footage at the very bottom, which been sharpened because the denoiser has removed some of the sharpness. And I've also rotoscoped myself, an adjustment layer, simple vignette, or adjust the brightness so the audience can pay attention to the center. Here we have a Luma matte. That's actually a smoke layer from Video Copilot. This is the Shockwaves HD. So created that and pre-composed it and bring it here. We have the foreground on top so that the smoke wouldn't affect the foreground. It's gonna actually make it feel that it's actually there. And another adjustment layer to add the heat wave, and another curves layer to make it balance out the whole thing. So there you have it. It's actually very simple if you come to think about it and when you break it down, but the process of heading there to come up with the final footage is what's tricky. And what I've also added here is a keyframe of scale and rotation that actually gives this, this feel of camera movement. And I've also added another mirror. Let's not forget that. Another mirror effect on the left side, another mirror effect on the right side, right here, just a little bit, tiny bit, just to fill that out the edges. And yeah, it was a shitty footage to begin with. I'm gonna put a footage side by side right now, just for you guys to compare. But yeah, that's as far as I can push. And for the final and the last adjustment that I've made is a simple adjustment layer on top, and I like to do this on every footage, on every finishing touches that I do for my projects. Is a unit finisher. What it actually does is just add a simple contrast, and just brings down the tonal contrast overall. And you can play around, but I just like default settings on it. And I've also added a film grain, and what this grain actually allows you to do is also helps with the compositing. Okay, so that was pretty much it. That was the breakdown of this project. I hope you guys like it, and make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and turn on the notification squad just so you'll be notified when the new video is up. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.